Hi Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to today's Stamping Made Simple, where we are making cards that are good for beginners as well as advanced stampers. I wanted to have a series of videos where new stampers could do something fairly easy, still fun, but fairly easy, and not require a die cutting machine or too many supplies, that kind of thing, to get you interested in, hopefully, in card making. So today we are doing a pocket slider card, and I am using the Sweet Jar bundle. And I have one that is going to be portrait and then one that's going to be landscaped. Okay, and what I mean by that is that one of them is going to be the 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall, whereas this one is 5 1/2 tall wide by 4 1/4 tall. So it's just kind of reversed direction. Hopefully that all makes sense to everybody. But I wanted to show both ways because it is such a simple card. It's going to be quick and easy, and we're going to be over in no time. And I wanted to give you guys at least 20 to 30 minutes worth of instruction today. I try to keep it kind of to the point without too much babbling, unlike today, but still give you guys some full directions. So let's go ahead and get started. So here are the cards. As I said, we are using the Sweet Jar bundle, and we're using this one, number one, because it's a punch bundle. So there is the stamp set and then the coordinating punch that goes with it. But also because we have a new set of online releases that are coming in July, and they're going to have a second stamp set that's going to coordinate with that same punch, and it's going to have a little snowman and a gingerbread man, several little things that will be great for the holidays coming up. So this one does, the good luck would give you St. Patrick's Day, you got Valentine's Day, birthdays. These are actually chocolate chip cookies, and then these are the sprinkles that go on the cookies. But you could also do jelly beans. So eventually, between the two sets, you're going to cover quite a few different occasions, which I love. We're also going to be working with a technique where we are going to use Stampin' Write markers on the stamp. And I have done that before using red rubber stamps, but today we're going to do it with photopolymers, and I'm going to show you why I use the MISTI with that. So let's go ahead and get started on the portrait style card. Okay, so I have my card base here. This is in Petal Pink, and as I said, 4 1/4 tall, 11 inches wide. It's scored at 2 inches and then 7 1/2. So basically, when we fold these two in, they're going to meet in the middle like a gatefold, which means there's a door from either side. But they're still going to have the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 overall, which is going to fit into our A2 envelope, which we're Stampin' Up are the medium white envelopes. Jennifer said she ordered some stuff from the last chance list. That's exciting. Yes, there was some fabulous stuff that was added out there for some awesome prices. So make sure that you're taking a look at that. The last chance list is where they show things that they're going to be phasing out, and there are some fabulous discounts to be had over there, and you want to grab those items before they're gone. We also have less than a week left for the sweet sale, which means the Stampin' Up Sweets, which is a suite of products that is going to work together, which would be a stamp set, dies. Let's see if I can grab one really quick. Okay, so here's the Kensington. I liked this one. Okay, so this is a suite collection, and the suite collection means that it's going to have a bundle. So you're going to have your stamp set, dies, and an embossing folder. and embellishments and paper. And by using this one item number, you can order all of these items with the one number and be assured that they're all going to work together. They're all going to coordinate with one another, making creation easy. But for the suite sale, you can choose any product within the suite. So you can choose just the designer series paper, the bundle, just the dies, just the stamp set, whatever. And if you choose one item out of a suite, you can choose a second item out of a suite and get it at half off, which is a pretty fabulous discount, but you only have till the 30th to get that order in, and that is Monday. So coming up quick. Okay, this piece that's going to go on the inside of this is going to be 3.5 by 7, scored at 1/2 inch and then 5 inch. And I'm going to fold this one over in this one like that. And you'll see why in a bit. So those are going to be our base. Okay, we're going to cover up the base with some designer series paper. So this is the mixed media floral. It was a pack I wasn't real wild about, so I only had a little bit of it and I'm trying to use it up. I know everybody's tastes are not the same, and so we do have a wide variety within Stampin' Up. And eventually something's going to appeal to everybody, but I'm just trying to use this one up. Okay, to go inside of here, I wanted a piece where I could stamp the inside sentiment. So this is 3.25 by 3.25. Now, traditionally on a layer, we would have it go all the way down, but because this is going to have the little door and it's going to hide it, it's not really necessary to have it go all the way down. And I thought by doing it at 3.25 by 3.25, you don't have to worry about orientation. It works always. Okay. Then for the front of our card, I have my focal point, which is going to be basic gray, 3 by 3, and then a basic white, 2.75 by 2.75. Okay. So let's go ahead, like I said, and put our basics together. I like to get all the little pieces out of the way so there's less on my desk to get lost. Oops. Okay, now I want to create a pocket on the bottom here, and my pocket's going to house this piece here. This is what's going to slide up and down on the inside. So you can see there's not a lot of room. We don't have very much room on either side, but I want it to stick really well. So I'm going to be using tear and tape, but as I'm putting it on, I'm being sure that I am staying as close to the edge as I can get, because there's really not much room to waste in there. I want to get full real estate out of my middle here. Normally that's not such an issue, but in this particular card it is. Okay, by running the bone folder over the top of the glue, it kind of warms it up and activates it and makes it stick a little bit better. Using my take your pick tool to peel the backing off. Usually I can do it with my fingernails, but not everybody has those as long as mine. And actually I even just trimmed them lately because they were getting too long, and then one broke. And so once one broke, I got them all to match. Oh, we have a first-time watcher. Welcome, Marie. That's fun. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the things that you find. I tend to specialize in fun fold cards and have actually written 2 books that you can purchase in my online store that are 50 patterns each. Okay, now I want to create a notch out of this to be able to pull the gift card out of. And normally I do that with just a 1-inch circle punch. I mean, and you can use any size circle punch. I've got the 1 3/4 up here, you know, that would work as well. We just need a little bit that you can pull out. Oops, just knocked my other camera. But if you don't have those, another thing you can do is just take one of the punches that you do have. Okay, now this doesn't really look like a notch, but it could be. I mean, I could load this in here and I can have it just punch out a little section. I mean, and it's not going to be round, but it's still going to work, right? So just take a look at any of the punches that you have and see, you know, what you could be using as a middle. Now you'd have to be careful. I don't want to, you know, grab something that I don't want, you know. You just kind of have to move it around and see what you can do. But it allows you kind of, I don't know, think outside the box and think of what you can do with some punches that you have that maybe you weren't thinking were going to be the right shape, and they could be. Okay, back to our card. So, ooh, I went the wrong direction on that, didn't I? I was talking too much and messed this up. Okay. I just totally messed that up, and I apologize. This doesn't happen very often, thankfully. I think I'm a little overtired today. I don't know. Something happened. So I'm scoring this at 2-inch. And then I'm moving that score line I'm putting on my 5.5. I am so sorry about that. I got to yammering and was not paying attention to what I was doing. Technically, it was kind of right. I just did the wrong end. Okay, now, I don't have more of this designer series paper. So really quickly, I'm just going to pop this off. And we'll get back to it. Yeah, I got all excited about a new subscriber, and look what happens. I go and look ridiculous. Somebody assure her I'm not usually this weird. I used to pre-record all of my videos so that if this ever happened, I could like edit it out. And I've had so many people tell me that they prefer to see the boo-boos to see how I fix it, which I guess has a point. Okay, what I used to take that off is called Undo, and this is just an alcohol-based adhesive remover. But one of the things I love about it is that it is safe for photos and things. And then once you use it, all you got to do is wait for it to dry, or maybe heat it up with the heat tool to make it dry faster. And then you can re-stick it. Like, the adhesive still works. And you could add more if you wanted to, because some of it may have pulled off. But for the most part, you can just flip it over and use it right away. Okay, what was I using for the it's Undo, and it's actually on my website. If you went to queenbeecreations.net, and then up in the shop menu is something about products I recommend, and there is an Amazon link for that. Okay, so back to this one. We are doing the same exact thing, and that I'm butting up to the edge as close as I can get. But this time we're doing it on the proper end. We need the pocket to go into the smaller side, not the larger side. this is where I figured out what I was doing wrong, because this slides into our pocket. And then I'm going to center it, and then I'm going to bring it up so that this 1/2 inch piece is going to be right underneath the score line. Now I'm giving it some room. There's a little bit of extra cardstock there. I'm not having it go all the way up because I want this to fold nice and clean, and I don't want to interfere with that. So, yeah, I made a mistake. Thank you for being so patient with me. Like I said, it's not something I do a whole lot, but occasionally, you know, things happen. That's part of being creative, and it's also part of being on film. There is something about the camera running that just, I don't know, makes me nervous or makes me do things I wouldn't normally do. Okay. So now I am putting 2 things of tear and tape across here. Again, this is a lot more adhesive than I normally use, but because it's going to get so much action, it's going to get a lot of movement, I want to make sure this is going to stick really well. So I've got that double of adhesive, and then I'm rubbing it with my bone folder. Again, that's warming up the glue, activating it so that it sticks really well, and that's going to allow this to slide up and down out of the pocket. Okay. Now, again, I said I wanted a sentiment to go in here. So I kind of know I want to keep it within, you know, the first 2 inches. So I'm going to grab my other card and show you my inside. I'm going to grab basic gray. And then for the single candle, I can stamp straight on there using a stamp pad. So for my candle, I'm going to need the 2 colors. I'm going to use Daffodil Delight for the flame and glow, and then Petal Pink for my candle itself. Out of the stamp set, we're using a Little Treat for You, and then this single candle and the glow on the top. Okay, when I mount my stamps, I tend to use my grid paper, and I line them up on the grid paper. Like I put one of the lines under there, and then I'm going to align my block with the lines as well. So that's going to hopefully keep me at a straight angle so that when I bring in my project paper, again, on grid lines, I've got it all nice and squared up. And I'm going to ink up and then stamp down in here. Again, I'm going a little high because remember it's going to dip in there a bit. And then I want my candle, and I want the top of it. I don't know that I necessarily want the wick. So I'm kind of hovering over and just getting the candle by itself and really not the wick. I don't know. It just didn't seem like it ought to be pink to me. But anyway, then I'm going to take the Daffodil Delight, and I am stamping the flame right over the top of it. So there is the inside of my card. And I'm using Stampin' Seal, which is a double-sided adhesive, comes in this roller, has a little bit of a trick to it for using it. And then I'm just using a little bit in the 4 corners. I see so many people that just run all the way around, And if it's not really going to get a lot of movement, I don't see where that's necessary. And to me, it uses more product than you really need to. And as we're all trying to save our pennies, maybe that's someplace you can save. It's not wasting. Okay, so there is the inside of our card, and this pocket is what's going to hold our gift card. Okay. And so because it's holding the gift card, it's not necessary. I mean, some people seal the two sides here, but it's not like it's going to come apart. So I didn't find it necessary, and to me it was easier to pull the gift card in and out, and it fit this way instead of having to go this way. Because if you had, you know, a 1/4 inch of adhesive on either side, this wouldn't go all the way across. So that's why I'm leaving this empty, okay? Okay, so Marie, how long have you been stamping or making cards? Have you been around Stampin' Up a long time or card making a long time? We have some people from all different levels here. When you sign up for my newsletter, which is in the description below of this YouTube video, it throws you through a survey and some introductions. And in the survey, it asked people if they were an advanced or a beginner stamper. And I had such a mix of both that I do kind of an easier, more beginner level on Thursdays and then an advanced on Mondays, so that we're covering everybody. Nobody's feeling left out. Okay, now we're ready for our focal point. As I said, I have the 3x3, and then there is a 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Here we go. And then I stamped my jar and I punched it out. And I'm going to show you why. Okay, I wanted to raise it up a little bit. It is up on dimensionals. And I made it shiny. Does anybody kind of notice that as you look at the jar, it's shiny, like a jar should be, right? So I'm going to show you how we do that. But we can go ahead and stick this to the card now. So again, I can get little pieces off my desk so they don't get lost. I'm going to stamp happy birthday across the bottom here. See, and that one's not on straight. Apparently I didn't load that one the way I normally do on the grid paper because it's not straight. So it took me a little more thinking to get that straight on my card, and still missed a little. So you see why that's important. Okay, and then this is just a Simply Chamois. It's a foam piece. We sell them through Stampin' Up. It's actually 4 times this big. I cut mine into 4ths because they are easier to use when they're, to me, when they're a little bit smaller. Some people will leave it full size and they'll put it into one of the stamp cases. Like if you had an empty stamp case, the Simply Chamois fits right inside, and then they'll close it up. If you are accessing it often enough, I suppose that works, but be careful about doing that if you're going to leave it in for any extended period of time. Without any air holes, yes, it might stay moist, but it also might grow mold. So just be a little careful with that, because you can purchase our stamp cases empty for storage. They're great for storing embellishments and markers. I mean, any number of things fit into them. I have my colored pencils in one. If you have other Stampin' Up stamps that were mounted on wood and you decided to unmount them and keep them, they would fit in them. And I have some tips and tricks for that. So if you have wood stamps that you would like to repurpose and have them work on our clear mounted blocks, let me know. I have some ways to do that. Oops. Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to center this overall in my card. And when I did this, I thought this looked kind of blank up here. So that's why I decided to add the baker's twine across the top. But let us start with the jar, and I'll show you how I did that with the candles. So my jar itself, I stamped in basic gray. And I talked last time about how this is empty in the middle on purpose because we don't want to get any ink in there. If you were stamping onto your ink pad and it was solid in the middle, you would risk getting a little blob of glue right here, or ink right here, and it would transfer to your project, and we don't want that. So if you ever get a set of red rubber stamps and there's a cutout in the middle, remove that part. And that's removed for a reason, because we want the middle to be hollow. Okay, so now is where I'm going to show you what I do with my stamping. Okay, let me think about this for a minute before I start blabbering. I wanted to show you that you can color your markers if you have something like this where there's 3 different candles and you want them 3 different colors. You can use your Stampin' Write markers, and it has to be the Stampin' Write markers, not your Stampin' Blends. Your Stampin' Blends are alcohol-based, which is great for coloring and blending things together, but the alcohol is bad for your stamps. We don't want to do that. So you have to have the Stampin' Write markers. The Stampin' Write markers are double-sided. There is a thin end and a thick end, indicated by the little stripes. The thin end now, it used to be more of a ballpoint. Now it's just a thinner felt tip, writes very fine. And then the other end is a brush tip marker. And the brush tip is what we're going to be using for this technique. So I'm going to just color onto my candle where I want it colored. Okay, then I'm going to pick up another color, and I'm going to do this. And I'm not thinking about it this time, but normally you want to start with your lightest color first and then move to darker so that you don't grab a marker. You know, if I was to pick up Lemon Lolly, say at this point, it might pick up that Lost Lagoon and get it onto my stamp, which wouldn't be good. But if I had Lemon Lolly down there and then picked it up with this, it wouldn't matter. Okay, so you can see when I do that, we get the 3 different colors, and it does okay. Really, when I learned this technique, we were doing it on red rubber stamps. And when you do this on red rubber stamps, and this is a small one, so I don't have to worry about it, but if you were doing a larger one and you were doing multiple colors and all of that, after you got your ink onto the stamp, you're going to huff on it, which is just using your breath to re-wet the ink. Okay, and that works really well for that. And it's better, like I said, on the red rubber than it is on the photopolymer. One of the things I recommend when you first get your photopolymers, if you're having trouble with the ink sticking to them, is to use an eraser to rub over the top of your stamps. And what that's going to do is remove any of the residue from when the stamps were created. They were in a mold, and the mold needed them to release. And so there was a coating put on the stamp material so that they could be easily removed from the mold. But we don't want that on our stamps for, you know, obvious reasons now that we're using them, because the ink doesn't stick as well. Let's see. I wanted to show you. I was going to go ahead and stamp it, but let me show you this. This is a MISTI. It's the most incredible stamping tool, is what MISTI stands for. And one of the things you can do with it is use it, number one, for stamp placement. So if I wanted to be sure that I'm finding the exact middle of this stamp, you know, where I wanted it to go, I can place it down on the project, pick it up with the lid, and it's going to give me my stamp to where I want to stamp it. Okay, and then I can come in with my markers and I can color my stamp. So if I do this and I go ahead and I stamp, and say I'm not happy with that. Say, you know, that purple, that could use some more ink. Maybe I could touch up a little bit in that Calypso Coral. I can come back with the markers once again, and I can ink up my stamp a second time. And then when I go to stamp it, it's going to hit in exactly the same spot, allowing me to add additional ink without having to try to mentally realign that to where it goes. So that just allowed me to make that much darker and kind of fill in the parts that were missing by doing that. Okay, then for my second stamping, I'm going to want to move this over and set this where I want the second set of candles to be. Pick it up with the lid. Then I'm going to choose some new colors. And you don't have to do this. You can stamp all three candles in the same color. That's not going to be an issue. That's totally an okay thing to do. But I just wanted to show an extra technique for people who may be a little frustrated with not getting the good image that they wanted, or for those that are wanting to do multiple colors and didn't know how that was done. Okay. So I'll try to quickly finish this up. And this one here is the mini Misty, and so it's got a smaller 5x7 opening. They have a larger one that I want to say is like 8x10, and then they have a 12x12 for scrapbooking. So it depends on what you're doing. Some of you may be lucky enough to already own the Stamparatus. That was Stampin' Up's version of a stamping tool. That does this same thing as well. It's just we were not allowed to sell it anymore. There was a copyright issue that they couldn't get resolved. Okay, so then the last set of candles, and then we can move on. Oops, I'm doing that backwards. Gotta put the colors in the same spots. So pink was going to go in the middle. Soft sea foam on the outside edge. So now we have our candles, and they are on there in our multiple colors. On this one, I actually used my single candle, and I went and filled in between. You can do that if you want for the sake of speed. This time I'm not going to do that. We're just going to give it our candle glow at the top and move on to the next step. In order to get it to have that shiny coating, I took the plastic, this is acetate, and I have the double-sided adhesive on here. This is called adhesive sheet, and it comes in 6x12 sheets. And I cut it down to size. I only needed a small piece for this, but I peeled off one side, stuck it down, and now I'm going to peel off the second side, and it's going to expose just a whole bunch of sticky. Can you see that? Then I'm going to lay that over the top of my jar here. So now it's shiny. Then I'm going to take it over to my punch, and I'm going to line this up and punch it out. It does work. It just requires both of my hands. So here is our jar with the acetate or window sheet on top of it. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm almost ready to finish this up and move on to our second card. When I put this on here, I'm going to put the jar down, and then I'm also going to put down the lid. So I'm going to come in. I have some adhesive sheet on this, which I don't necessarily need. But we're going to punch out the lid there, or we could stamp it. And then I'm going to put dimensionals behind it. When I put the lid on, I cut these mini dimensionals in half so that I could put them behind the lid and have the lid and the jar the same height. And cutting them in half allowed them to hide behind that little skinny top. I don't know if you can see that back there. But behind this are little half dimensionals, half of the minis. I'm going to take some white baker's twine, and I'm going to leave kind of a generous loop over here, and then I'm going to go around 3 times. And then I'm going to cut off some excess. Push it up to the top here. And I'm going to go ahead and just tie a knot. It's easier for me to tie the bow if I just tie the knot, so at least we are stationary and I don't have to worry about it getting loose and all of that. So I'll do that. Now, occasionally I may even want to wrap this under and then tie another knot so that the middle 3 sections stay together. So that as I mess with these ends and raise them up and down and push them around and make it decorative, you know, where I want them, I don't have to worry about the middle part coming undone. And then I can go ahead and make my bow. And with this, you kind of have to make it on the card, but luckily with baker's twine, it's usually not too hard. Okay. Like I said, I'll put the lid on that one. Here is our second one. So I have the landscaped version now. And so that's going to start with a piece that is 8.5 wide, 5.5 tall. It is scored at 1 3/4 and 6. Again, I want to make sure, now watch me, this is the side I want to make a pocket, and then we're going to have our lid. So again, it's going to meet as kind of a gatefold. And before I even like burnish down the sides, I always kind of try to make sure that I can butt the two up together and that they're not too narrow, they're not overlapping, all of that. And I kind of hold my fingers there, and then I go ahead and burnish. So I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little teensy bit where it may have overlapped a little if I didn't start this way. Okay, so by my going back into the fold and pushing this way, I can make sure that I'm not overlapping in the middle. And if I was, you know, if there was a gap, again, I could push these two, hold them together, and then burnish this, and it keeps it in the right spot. Okay, I have a basic white that's going to go in the middle that is 5 1/4 by 4. That would be our normal layer. If we were doing a standard card, that would be what we would put in there. I put it in there as an accent. It's not really necessary. I was reusing some old paper for my sample here, and I already had a score line in the back, which kind of made my base a little bit unstable. Again, I'm using leftovers, trying to create samples for today, but adding that extra layer in the back just stabilized it so that score line didn't try to fold. Okay, so I don't think anybody's really going to come back at me and say, hey, there's a score line in the back, why is that there? But you know, that's up to you. If you wanted to just restabilize it and make full use of your cardstock, that's just an idea. Okay. The second piece, this is going to be the little pocket that slides up and down on the inside. This is 6 inches wide, 4 1/4 tall. It's scored at 1/2 inch and then at 4 inch. So that's going to go like this. I have a bone folder somewhere here. Another thing you can do to make the jar shiny, if you have more time, is that you could use the fine tip glue pen and then just pile glue on the top and let it dry. It has a tendency to need to dry overnight, which is why I'm not doing it on video. But what you would first do is you would stamp your jar the way you wanted it, and then you would use your fine tip glue pen to make a line all the way around the outside to create kind of a wall, and then let that dry for a few minutes, and then go back and fill in the rest of it. And what that's going to do is that outside ring is just going to keep the liquid from running off the edge of your project. Okay, it's kind of how they ice cookies. They keep the icing in the middle by doing that. So same idea. to go on the outside. So this is going to be my inside. Oh, and there's this piece is 2 3/4 by 4. That's going to fit right in there. I made it the same size as the outside one so that I could just say 2 of the same size. Again, just making it easy. I could have opted to make it go all the way down. It's not necessary, and to me, making it the same size just was easier. Okay, it's going to mount on top of a piece of Shy Shamrock. This is Flirty Flamingo. So this is 3 by 4 1/4. So that's going to be my focal point on the front. And then my designer series paper is, it started out as 5 1/4 by 3 3/4, but that's 2 1/4 and then 1 1/2. Okay, so these are going to be my pieces on the front. This is kind of a pattern, so that's why I was kind of making sure I was lined up correctly. With this pattern, it's not really super necessary to line up, but some of your bolder patterns, it might be fun to make sure that that's where you cut so that you are right side up and matching your pattern, all of that good stuff. My nerves are still shaky from messing up that first card. Whew. Again, this middle piece, not necessary. Just maybe you'd want to maybe even use another piece of designer series paper or something back there just as an accent. Not necessary, but you could. Again, I'm going to put a little notch in here so you can grab the gift card. I'm setting it down in here and making sure that it's, not going to hit the lip. It's not going to hit the bottom. I need to put my adhesive on the 2 sides. Again, I'm trying to get it as close to the edge as possible, just because I have that piece that's going to fit in between them. I want to make sure it's not going to hit the edge. This one gives me a little more grace than the other one, but still. Slide that down into the pocket. Pull it up to the top so it's kind of just before the score line, but not interfering. Giving it a generous amount of adhesive because it's going to get movement. I do. And we can move on to our stamping. As I said, I had 2 of this size. One for the inside, one for the outside. There it is. On the inside of the card, I just have happy birthday. That's nice and easy. So I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo so it'll match. One of my favorite things about Stampin' Up! Is the fact that they color coordinate and that their ink and their paper and their ribbon and their embellishments and everything of one color all matches. If you were to get Flirty Flamingo ink, paper, ribbon, embellishments, it's all going to match. Very cool. I had that happy birthday. Here we go. You'll also notice I tend to throw my ink pad out in front of me. I used to keep it by the side over here, and I often stuck my elbow into it, which was not cool. So I found that by training myself to keep it out in front, I'm less likely to stick my elbow in it. Oh, just one more time for the outside. Oh, a couple times on the outside, actually. Okay. So on the outside, I need the jar in basic gray. And then the lid in basic gray. Then for the inside of it, you'll notice that it's kind of two-toned. And I could have done this using 2 different colors of ink pad, but I didn't. I did this all with Flirty Flamingo, and how I got that lighter color was I took the piece that's going to be in the back and I inked it up, and then I stamped it off on scrap paper to the side and then stamped onto my project. This is called a second generation stamping, and it just gives you a slightly lighter color, so you can work in kind of tones of the same color. Because now I can take the other part of this, which is going to be this parts that stamp on top, and I can do this in full strength. So without stamping it off, I'm aligning my hearts, these 3 right here, with these. I don't know if you can see how I do that, but I'm looking through the stamp. That's why it is photopolymer, because it allows us to do 2-step stamping, which is what they call this, where you have your base and then you stamp over the top of it. And the fact that they are photopolymer and you can see through them is why that's easy to align. If you're having issues getting it to align, try standing up and looking straight down from the top, because that's going to give you the best bet. The way I'm sitting, I'm looking at an angle, and so I don't always hit exactly where I want to from an angle. But if I'm standing up looking straight down, then I know exactly where it's going. That's also another time where you may want to use the MISTI, because you can put your paper in there, stamp your first one, and then you can take your second piece and you can wiggle it around and put it exactly where you want it on your project, then pick it up with the lid, and then you know when you ink it, it's going to stamp exactly where you wanted it to be. So the MISTI can come in handy for quite a few things. Okay, we have our sentiment for the front, and we're almost done with this one. So here we go. Okay, so this one threw me for a loop at first because it's 2 sentiments basically. It says sending a little, and then it says your way, and they're kind of looped together. And I thought, why are 2 stamps like that? I wanted to cut them apart, and then I realized that the reason they do that is when you stamp this one, it gives you just enough space to come in with a second stamp. So this one's, you would say, sending a little luck your way, sending a little love your way, sending another sweetness your way, sending a little party your way. I mean, you could mix and match this several different ways, but this little word is then going to fit right in between. And it gives you the perfect amount of space to stamp that in there. Okay, so can now assemble our card, add a few embellishments, and we're done. Does anyone have questions? This is a great time to ask me questions while you have me as a captive audience here. Even if it's not related to this card, if you ever have any just general stamping questions, go ahead and let me know. Again, that's what I'm here for. Remember to go take advantage of the last chance category. There's lots of discounts to be had there, as well as the suite sale that is going on where you can get any part of a suite for buy one, get one 50% off. Okay, and then I have some older embellishments here. I'm just trying to use these up, but there is something very similar. There are these colors and they're pearls, flat pearls. That's what I have listed in the list below of all of the pieces used in the making of this card. There are links below, so if you're looking for this bundle or this designer series paper, anything I used, all those pieces are listed below in the description, as well as links to my newsletter and my online store where you can find things like my tutorial books, and bow maker tool, and all that good stuff. So, oh, I went sideways, darn it. Sorry about that, I didn't catch that. Hopefully that just happened recently. The name of this suite is called the Sweet Jar, and it is the stamp set and the punch, and this is what's available right now. And then July 1st, there's going to be a second stamp set. I don't remember the name of it, I'm sorry, but there's going to be a second stamp set of all these little pieces that will stamp inside the jar. There's a snowman, a little gingerbread man, several little pieces that are holiday related that will fit into the jar as well. So that allows you to make the most of your stamp set and punch by being able to mix and match the two together. So thank you so much. Again, those links are in the description below, and I will see you on Monday for another fun fold card of a more advanced level. So thank you so much, and I will see you then. Thanks. Bye.